So Derek, you did $1 million on a free book. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure thing, Aleric. That's actually what this award right behind me is about. We did $1 million in sales selling a free book, utilizing a really interesting low ticket offer funnel strategy and Ascension model that helped our client do over $1 million in sales and liquidating our ad spend all at the same time.
Wow. All right. Well, I know we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into that. All things, low ticket offers, but also leading into high ticket. Derek was just telling me some really, really cool things that he's working on right now. I'm excited to dive in because we have on the Marketing Minds podcast, Derek Tsuboi. He is the managing partner at Rediscover Digital. He's driven multi-million-dollar revenue growth across a wide, diverse range of different industries. He's also a recognized authority in ROI campaign development. And he architects high-end marketing systems and is a multi-time recipient, not just of the 2 Comma Club award that he's got behind him, but also of the 2 Comma Club X and C awards, which is over $25 million in a funnel, by the way. And so I'm so excited to have Derek on here. And also, a fun fact, Derek also used to be on the ad outreach team many years ago. So I've seen firsthand how incredibly smart he is, how much knowledge he has. And I can't wait to dive into some of the strategies that are working for you right now.
I can't be more excited, Aleric. Super excited to dive in and share some of the strategies that have been working for us over the last couple of years and share some value.
I love it. So just kind of diving in, I know one of the things you were talking about is low ticket offers and how that translates into high ticket. What is that currently looking like right now? Could you maybe break down that funnel? Because again, $1 million in free book sales, right? So the free plus shipping offer. And I know many people watching this are going to understand what that is, but also just a little bit of a recap for anybody who might not be as familiar with how free plus shipping offers work. You could break that down and then we'll dive into some of the more advanced stats and what you're seeing.
Yeah, 100%. So it's super funny, $1 million in sales from a free book. The book itself is free, as we mentioned. And for those not familiar, I'm just going to kind of walk through the way this offer works. We offer the book for free, but then the customers need to pay for shipping and handling. So we charge a small fee for that. In this case, it's typically $7.95. That's just kind of the number that we've sort of decided upon. And we build several of these book funnels. This one just so happens to be the one that I have the award for right behind me, which was specifically for real estate, which we can get more into later. But the funnel itself is simply the free plus shipping offer on the front end. The book is something that's designed specifically to address a pain point in a specific market. So in this instance, we're talking about real estate. So this book was about how to get started in real estate with little to no money, obviously. A very important detail there because most people think they need lots of money to get started in real estate, or lots of experience to get started in real estate, or lots of connections or be a part of groups to get started. So, of course, all of our content spoke against a lot of those objections, drove people to the funnel, mentions the free book. People get there, they see that the book itself is free. In fact, it's 100% true, but there is a small shipping and handling fee that they would need to cover to receive the book. That right there, it covers kind of our back-end cost, of course, and it helps liquidate a little bit of the ad spend because $7.95 to ship a book is a little more expensive than it actually costs to ship the book. So we make sure to factor that all in because we don't want to, of course, lose money on the front end. And then there are a series of upsells and downsells, which is where the magic really happens.
And that's what I'm excited to dive into. And what we do on the Marketing Minds podcast, I know that you were sharing some of the other episodes you've listened to that you really liked is, as you know, dive deep and really kind of break down what's working right now. And I know you're behind the scenes for a lot of funnels like this, but let's break down that $1 million funnel. What were those upsells? So you got the $7.95 book. What were those different upsells that you lead people to afterwards?
Yeah, so the upsells themselves, like we have a little bit of a framework for how we like to put in upsells and downsells, but kind of the main playbook for this funnel was we offered an initial course, a companion course, essentially to go with the book that was positioned as a way to kind of speed up the timeline, because of course it takes some time to read a book, right? So if you're, hoping to achieve the outcome or transformation of the book, you've got to read the book and then implement. So the course is positioned as a way to kind of save yourself some time and get from point A to point C a little bit faster, right? So of course, someone who is coming in already with that free plus shipping offer already has, a massive pain that they're trying to address. they get now this very enticing offer as they are getting the solution to their pain. That's a bit faster, works a little bit better, it's a bit quicker, but it does require a little bit more investment. So we had an over 35% take rate on that first upsell, which was a 197 price point. Our 795 became 197 very quickly. And then from there, we had a downsell, which would offer people who said no to that a deluxe book bundle, which, believe it or not, many people took because the audiobook was included. So if you're like me and you're an audiobook fan, you see that audiobook piece and it was like an instant sure. For $9.95 to get an audiobook, you get a couple other little bonuses that came with it, but it was primarily audiobook. If I'm going to pay $7.95 free shipping and get shipping and handling on my free book, and I get an offer for an audiobook version, which I'm probably going to honestly use more than the real book, yeah, it's a bit of a no-brainer. So people would come through the sequence, and there were two more elements to it: a downsell for 97 for that same course on the front end. They said no by step 2, and then another offer. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what it was, but it was another downsell offer. It was basically 2 upsells and then 2 downsells. So people could move from the initial free $795 to a total cart value of like $250 to $300. And then there was a free call.
Of course.
It was like, would you like fries with that? Would you like some ketchup with that? Would you like a milkshake? We added all of the extras basically with this funnel.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, what you're seeing in terms of converting people from low ticket to high ticket. That includes calls like that in just a second, because I know that's something almost everybody that gets into low ticket is wondering about. I know you've got some secret sauce behind that. I'm excited for us to talk about that. But before we talk about that, I am curious, is there a reason that the audiobook, the $9.95 as a upsell versus a bump? Did you notice that it wasn't working as well as a bump? Did you ever try it as an order bump? And for people watching or listening, the order bump is on the page that's on the checkout. So you can just kind of click a button and add that bump, versus an upsell or a one-time offer is on a next page after people already check out. So is there a reason that you're doing that as an upsell versus a bump?
Yeah, so the reason behind that was just because we had another order bump already in place. I feel like if we didn't have other products and services to offer, that would have been an amazing one to offer at that point, because I think a lot of people definitely would have taken it. But for us, the goal wasn't to sell audiobooks, right? If the goal was to sell audiobooks, we would have, absolutely put it there. The goal at that point, if they were to decline an upsell, we use this as somewhat of a conditional kind of logic system. We didn't create a conditional logic kind of based system for this. We kind of would look at these leads, and the sales team would look at these leads and see, what they initially purchased. They would see, of course, number one, they're a buyer lead. They spent the $795 to purchase the book, the free shipping and handling there. And then from there, if they purchased the first upsell, the chance that they were likely going to upgrade into our higher ticket service offering, which is the whole thing we're trying to sell and where the majority of the millions of dollars came from, right? Those people were much more likely to upgrade, like 30 to 40% more likely, to put a number or a figure on it, compared to the users that took a downsell. Now, the only reason we included the downsells, because obviously the downsells were lower quality leads that did not move into the higher ticket backend at anywhere near the degree that the people that took the upsells did, which is why we do an upsell and downsell sequence, right? 2 separate sequences, because they're 2 different qualities of lead now. So we're breaking buyer leads into 2 buckets, right? You can assume high quality, low quality, however you want to look at it. That's how we look at it. And then from there, our follow-up segmentation and what occurs from that point is going to be dependent on whether they're higher quality or lower quality. So it helped us identify things very quickly. And of course, we didn't know at the time that the higher quality leads would truly be higher quality. That was just sort of the idea, the hope that if they're going to spend more money in the funnel, they're likely further down the funnel or likely just better qualified people. We did find that to be the case. And the people that were buying the downsells helped better monetize the ad costs on the front end. So between the sales in the funnel and between the downsells in the same funnel, we were able to liquidate anywhere between like 0.6 to like 1.1 of ad spend on the front end. So, for those of you that don't totally understand what that means, as we'd spend money on ads, we'd get these people to come through the funnel and spend the $7.95. They'd go through the upsell and downsell sequences in the exact same, basically, time frame. And we would make back 60% and sometimes up to 110%, which is a profit on the front end, to drive in these leads. So on a really good day at 110%, we're getting paid to generate leads and calls for our client.
I love it. And this is the thing that I think is really important. Everybody watching or listening to know about the benefit of these low ticket offers is that liquidation. So everything that you're talking about, Derek, like that liquidation is really key, because if you can spend $100 and get $75 back, well, then what did you actually spend? Let's just use that as kind of an average between you're talking about. Well, you really only spent $25 of net ad spend. So if you have a budget for ads of, let's say, and these are smaller numbers, obviously you can multiply this, but let's just use smaller numbers. Let's say you have a budget of $100 a day. Well, that's your net ad spend budget, the cash outlay. So you can actually spend $400 gross. You make back $300 in sales, and you've only net spent $100. So that's a way that you can actually grow the amount that you spend on ads without increasing the net ad spend line item on your ads. So if you have a certain amount that you can afford to spend to generate new leads, if you just put them into a lead gen funnel, right? Whether it's booking a call, a PDF funnel, a VSL funnel. And again, those are all well and good. And there's a lot of benefit to those too. So I'm not knocking, one way or the other, but when it comes to the front end products, everything that you're sharing, if you have the ability to liquidate at the types of numbers that you're talking about, and as long as it does convert in the back end, because we're going to talk about that next, how this can go wrong. And this is why this podcast is so important. This episode is so important, because there's things that could go wrong here. We'll talk about that. But if you can liquidate, that means that you can afford to spend, in that hypothetical example, 4 times as much gross ad spend, which means more leads coming in. You get more buyer leads, qualified leads that can come through. So definitely a really valuable thing. So Derek, on that point though, there's obviously ways that this can go wrong. And so, do you want to describe what could go wrong if maybe you're not focused on the quality of those buyers?
Yeah. So 2 kind of areas that I can focus on here and ways this can go wrong. I'll start on the front end and then I'll get to the back end. So on the front end, of course, like launching something like this is extremely difficult. I'd be lying if I said this was super easy to just spin up and you could launch this tomorrow. Probably not. It's a little bit difficult because the quality of the upsell obviously matters a lot. I feel like a lot of times upsells and downsells are afterthoughts for like most companies, most people, and most businesses, which is why they don't work nearly as well. That's a huge part of this. Remember before I was mentioning that we have 2 buckets of buyer leads. Well, the buckets are irrelevant if we don't qualify why the buckets exist, right? Like if it's simply a more expensive product and less expensive product, which is the way it might be perceived at this point, right? You might be shooting yourself in the foot because that's not really going to be indicative of your true lead quality, right? Just because someone didn't want to buy your course, like personally, I would never buy your course. Just not me. I'd buy the free plus shipping offer on the book. Sure. I would not buy the course. So I would go into the downsell sequence now and I would be offered the audiobook, which I would definitely buy. So I'd be the $9.95 right there. I'd be offered the course again at a discounted rate, which I would not take. And then I'd be downsold I want to say it was like a deluxe book bundle after the fact. I could have the deluxe book bundle and the audiobook reverse. It could have been deluxe book bundle, then audiobook exactly there. Minor detail. But I would have not bought the upsells. I would have bought the downsells personally. So I would have gone into the lower quality lead bucket. And for this product, like I'm definitely your prime lead for sure. Like super interested in real estate, disposable capital, like ready to go at the right opportunity. I would have been like a prime lead, but I would have never been contacted or never been treated the way that I should have been if they were only looking at them from a purely financial perspective, right? So there's that part. And then there's, of course, the front end, right? Which we were just talking about before getting into this tangent. Now, the front end itself, we mentioned the complexity of setting one of these up. This is definitely one of the more complex funnels because you have multiple steps, multiple products, and several offers. There's also likely going to be videos on each of these upsell pages. They were for us at least, right? So that's just a lot more collateral you need to do this. And this collateral can't just be stuff you just throw together. That needs to be very good collateral. It needs to be very good videos, very good offers, very good products, has to be super congruent, right? Otherwise, it's just not going to work. If it looks like just some extra stuff that you're just throwing in there, it's not going to work. And obviously, even if it does work to a degree and people buy it, it won't translate on the back end because people will not ascend, people will not move forward with your sales team. And then that's going to be an even bigger problem. So I would say this wouldn't be something I would probably launch by itself in most cases. I'd probably run this in tandem with like another offer or a free offer of some kind just to kind of get an idea. Although this could be something good for people with very low budgets because you can spend a lot less ad money out of pocket net, right? To get some maybe a bit more budget than you would have normally because you can liquidate some of the ad spend on the front end. So that could be a very good option for somebody starting out. But I would definitely say that leading with an offer like that could be difficult because not everyone wants to buy, on the front end. So again, depending on your industry, depending on who you're going after, there is not a one size fits all. I don't always just say only run low ticket offers. I would recommend running like, a free offer of some kind, a low ticket offer of some kind, and compare quality and see how quickly you can turn a lead into a back end sale, and that to me, like the time from lead to sale, that's like, to me, the most important metric, right? I would argue it's probably the most important metric in this type of business model is what's the lead to sale, right? Because if I can get free leads to sale faster than a buyer lead, then why are we even running buyer lead campaigns? So again, this is getting like but I would say those couple key differences and key things on the front end are definitely like the most important things. I'll pause there before I get into any of the back end discussion, just because the front end does have like a lot of elements to it.
And I think this is a really good way of looking at it, is that you want to have some parameters and look at the data, but you also don't want to get so caught up on the data that you ignore what could be higher qualified leads. The other thing is you don't want to get so excited about liquidating all your ad spend that you negate the fact that what are you missing if you're doing low ticket and you're not doing training /VSL lead magnets, PDFs, is you're missing a lot of leads that grow your email list that allow you to send offers in the future. If you can get lower cost leads, there's a lot more people on your list, that not only potentially could book calls sooner, but also it gives you the ability to have those types of people that are going to be able to actually be on your list and raise their hand when they're ready, because not everybody might be ready right off the bat. And so when it comes to the overall low ticket offers, because this is really, we're getting granular here, but I think this is so important because this is the type of thing that people need to hear. With those, let's dive into the back end, some of the stuff that you were going to talk about, but especially what does it look like to ascend these people? Because one big mistake I've seen people make is they sell a low ticket offer and they don't have a clear plan to turn the people who buy that into actual booked calls, actual clients, actual sales. And that's one of the biggest mistakes I've seen people make. How do you avoid that and what should you do?
So I have an awesome answer to this. And this is not the answer like a lot of clients like to hear personally, but to me, this is like the best answer when it comes to just like, Ascension and helping, move your clients from point A to point B, and then we can expand upon this. But I like to kind of tell people that, when they are selling like a front end offer of some kind, especially like specifically low ticket, one thing to be careful of is there could be a lot of situations and cases where people will move through the low ticket offer and then they'll drop off. And a lot of times they'll drop off because either maybe your offering may have addressed like the small concern that maybe you were kind of speaking about, and there's not necessarily a need to move forward on your product or service. That happens from time to time, believe it or not. There's also the fact that you mentioned, Aleric, where there's not like a clear connection or pathway to get from A to C, right? They went from A to B, but there's no B to C. So they just end up stuck at B. And then there's the other option as well, or other kind of pitfall that I feel like people fall into, which is they predicate the completion of whatever step. Let's assume it's the free plus shipping offer book, but the book a call link is on the final chapter of the book, meaning that you're predicating the person's ability to book the call on their ability to completely read the book, which if that's your mindset, oh boy, wow, oh man, prepare to be humble. Like those are perfect examples of getting in your own way, in my opinion. I like to tell clients, and again, this is the kind of controversial advice that not everyone's going to probably agree with, but I like to tell clients this. If someone was to reach out, and raise their hand for your lead magnet, paid or not, whatever it is, and they move forward, whatever it is you deliver from that point, the real purpose of it should be to drive them to your flagship offer. Like, that's the whole point. You know what I mean? Like, again, if you expect them to read your book, oh man, you have messed up big time. Like, what do we do? The goal isn't to get them to read the book. The goal is to get them to raise their hand with the book and say, hey, this book can help solve a problem. But think about this. Many of our clients, almost all of them, right, with a book funnel, would sell this book, free plus shipping offer, right? The book is not shipping out until like the next business day, right? These people are going through the Ascension sequence before they read the book, right? Think about that. So like, again, a lot of people don't think about that. And they just think like, oh, I got to get someone to read my book, read my book, read my book. And that's going to create the paradigm that I need them to understand to then move forward to my flagship service. That is like big fail. It's just never going to work, unfortunately. Like your lead to sale is going to be like a year to 5 years, depending. Because most people, unfortunately, won't read the book. They just won't. I've got, unfortunately, enough data to support that fact as well. Most people, they order the book and they put it on their bookshelf. They might open it, maybe, but I doubt it. So if your free plus shipping book funnel is relying on them to read the book, you're going to be sadly mistaken, I guess, when you find out how many people won't read the book. So I'll pause there.
And it's the same thing. It's the same thing with course content too. And this is also the reason that people have high ticket offers and coaching programs and, or higher touch courses that are gamified or hands-on consulting or agency services or whatever happens to be that's a high ticket offer, is because we all know that is what is the clearer path to actually get the results that the clients are looking for. But the thing is, it's all about getting people to know, like, and trust you and get them to that stage where they say, yes, you're the person to help me. So a part of that journey could be buying a book, buying a course, going through the first module of a course, right? Reading the first few pages, reading the outside of the book, just having something physical. Oh, this book exists. It looks nice, right? Like, the thing is that all of these elements add on the journey of bringing that client, to you. But you're exactly right. So I just want to underscore everything that you're saying there, Derek. It's like, the end goal is to bring them into the program because that is what's actually going to produce the results that they're looking for. And so you don't want to leave it up to themselves because, the people themselves, they've gotten them where they're currently at. There's a reason they're looking for help. And, there are some people that can go and implement from a book or go and implement from a course. But the reason you have a high ticket offer is because of the fact that most people need more hands-on help, or a service or whatever it happens to be, coaching to actually get the results that they're looking for. Or if they get some, minor wins or mini wins, amplify those results with your higher ticket program. So either way, that's what it's leading to. So I love it. Is there any other golden nuggets? Because I want to dive into something that you've said works really well. I'm curious to hear the 2025 update in a second here. But before we get into that, anything else on low ticket products, book funnels, anything else you're seeing, any other golden nuggets you want to share?
Yeah, I'll just extrapolate upon what you had said, kind of further reinforcing the course part, right? I can't tell you how many projects I've come across where we have a course as the product and the course itself is the vehicle to move and ascend people through the value ladder, like we just mentioned with the book, right? And I think when we frame it with a book, it sounds even more ridiculous, right? Like, I'm going to send you a book and you're going to read 20 chapters of this book. It's going to take you a couple weeks, and then you're going to book a call with my team, and then you're going to consider the offer, and then you're going to book a follow-up call, and then you're going to get closed on that call. How long is it? We're talking like probably 45 days at this point, like lead to sale. Well, that's just not even feasible. That's just not a workable business model. So like when I think about the courses, and I mentioned even in our book funnel, we have the courses. Again, people are buying the course and then moving right into the next offer. And then they're booking in a call, an acceleration session, a strategy session, whatever you want to call it, all in the same breath. Think about it. Like, I don't care if they do the course, no offense, but like, we don't care. That's not the point. Those are simply the mechanisms. The book is just a mechanism. We just need the book to help them raise their hand. And as you mentioned, there will be some people out there that want to physically hold and see a book and see that this is real. They want to take the online to offline. Even if they won't ever read it, they might open it, flip through a few of the pages and be like, wow, this is really Aleric's book, huh? neat, put it up on the shelf. And the next time they get that email about the strategy call, they sure as heck will book it.
Exactly. I think that's a great way of putting it. And just so segueing a little bit, because there's so much knowledge that you have. And, I know one of the last events that we were at a little while ago, we were jamming back and forth. And one of the things you told me was that you were doing something with Facebook Live ads, right? So with Facebook Live combined with ads, you're sharing some really interesting stats and things that are working. My first question is that still working today? How well is it working? And then if so, can you break down the strategy and share that with everybody here?
Yeah, so still working well, although Facebook has made a pretty epic change to that platform that kind of has changed a lot of the strategy a good bit. Facebook has historically kept live content on platform like sort of indefinitely. But recently, Facebook has sort of moved away from like their live content and previously live content. Not sure the entire reason. Personally, I felt like it was a great use case. Obviously, for ads, we found a really cool workaround, which essentially was you record a Facebook Live, assume this was live, right? It'd be us maybe jamming or just me, myself, maybe riffing about something. And previously live or a live recorded video on Facebook would typically get about 3 times the amount of reach. And this is something I started in like 2018 even, and had been running like indefinitely across all accounts, almost everything I did for the most part, where I could get the person to do a live. And we saw great results, especially on the front end of people registering, because it kind of promoted this like kind of casual ad vibe, which still super applies today. Like our best ads by far are our own edits. Like we get raws from the clients as well as like their edits and things. And our edits always beat them because we don't make our ads look like ads. And I feel like that was the big key strategy to the Facebook Live working better. Aside from Facebook kind of being preferential to it, but also just the fact that it looked live, it felt more like personal and like impromptu. And like that's the vibe of social media, right? The way I like to explain it is if I'm scrolling through my phone and I notice ads or I go from ad to ad, I'm going to have my guard up and I'm going to be a lot more protective of myself, as opposed to if I'm looking at like, oh, my friend's barbecue last week, oh, that conference last week, oh, that event last week, and then I pop across a video that talks about online marketing. I'm going to probably sit there and listen to it for a few minutes and see what they're talking about and if I know them possibly or whatever, right? And next thing I know, I've watched this whole video. Facebook knows that, obviously, as well as all the platforms. And then it curates even more content to you based on that. So the strategy itself still works extremely well. It is a little different now, I guess, in how we seed the content and how we get the content out there. But we're still leveraging the ads themselves. We're still really driving views and engagement to profiles. The business profiles themselves have obviously definitely lost, I think, a lot of traction, luster, and things over the years. That's nothing new. But what we have found is that the content assets themselves have the value these days. It's not the pages, it's not the ad accounts as much of a degree. It still obviously is to a degree, but it's been far more about the actual content, the ad IDs, the ads themselves that seem to make more a difference these days. And this is getting really into like the weeds when it comes to the ad management piece, which is my number one forte. But yeah, that's what we've noticed is it's very like specific to the creative, and you can still create previously live content, right? You can record that on Loom, Riverside, whatever, not super important, but uploading that content, directly to your page, wherever it is that you're going to put it, but it just appearing as if it was live is really the key strategy. And then maintaining that post ID wherever you can is going to help you continue to generate the juice from it. We're using those same post IDs in ad accounts and in multiple ad accounts wherever possible, just because, again, I'm sure you're probably seeing this too, in your own world, Aleric, but like for us, it's less about selections and audiences and things these days. It's really more about the content of the ad, the hook in the copy, the hook in the actual video ad itself. Like those are the things that really, truly for us have been making the difference between like success and failure. And it's just been a lot less like audiences and, other things. It's been really kind of refreshing, honestly, to see. It's like, wow, he who can come up with the best hook, really does seem to get the most attention these days.
Yeah. And especially, on Facebook, it's a little bit different, still on YouTube with the way that you do custom audiences and things like that. But on Facebook, definitely, it's going way, way more towards the content. And AI is watching all this content. There's AI is analyzing who's looking at what, so there's just so much data that goes into that, especially, on the Facebook and Meta side of things. And so let's break down, because you've just shared a really powerful strategy. It sounds like maybe it's not quite the blue ocean it was a year or 2 years ago, but it still sounds like it's pretty powerful, which is to run a live video as an ad on Facebook/Meta. So if you were to kind of give a step-by-step breakdown for somebody who wanted to try this strategy for themselves, and you kind of talked about it, but I'd love like an action plan. What's that step-by-step breakdown of what they should do to create this type of live ad?
Super easy. You can do this with like Loom, for example, which Loom has like a free account, I'm pretty sure, that you can sign up for. And you can just do like a straight on screen recording of yourself. It's already on your computer. And then you can take that literal screen recording itself, download it directly from Loom, and upload it to Facebook as a video ad and post it. That's all you need to do. And to be honest, depending on like your expertise or what it is that you specialize in, if you need a visual, then Loom's great because you can do the screen recording with yourself, which is very important. So you're still in frame and you're still there and a part of it. That way there, people don't assume right away that it's an ad, because again, that's going to be kind of the key thing, is to not make it look like an ad as much as possible. So if you are, with a product or have something that's very demonstration sort of oriented, then I would definitely try to do my best to break it up and make it as interesting as possible. Again, if it looks like an ad, it's likely not going to do very well. Whereas if you sell a bit more of like a service, or you teach something and you can kind of explain it kind of like this, then you're going to get a much, much better result. Again, using something like Loom to just simply record a video of you, you can turn the screen part off. That way there, it just records yourself. You can speak, write a nice little piece of copy to go with that, good little headline or two, and then put that up. And then if it does well, you can, of course, recreate that video or simply scale up the budget on the campaign.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that I know you're talking about is also running that as a live video. Would you just do that on Facebook as a live on Facebook? Or would you use like something like Riverside or StreamYard? Or is that the thing that might not be working the same way as it did before? What's kind of the steps if you wanted to do kind of the live ad strategy?
So the live piece, the live ads themselves or the live content itself is only going to exist on the platform for up to 60 days.
So that's the change that you talked about. I just want to get full clarity on that. So you could do it, but only with a 60-day window.
Yes. And from what we've found, we can download, of course, the video that we record and then re-upload it or reuse it as an ad. But the problem there is it creates another ad ID.
Yeah.
So there's kind of like a weird situation where like you can use that content as an ad for a period of time. But me personally, I don't like the idea of like investing or like learning or like putting stock into something that I just know is not going to like continue.
So
and this is
it sounds like they closed the loophole, because for everybody watching or listening, what we were talking about is what Derek, you were sharing before, is there was kind of like this hack where, I know you were doing this with a lot of clients, where you were having them do a Facebook Live and then running that live as an ad, and it just racked up engagement. But it sounds like Facebook right now is only letting you have it for 60 days. That makes more sense. That gives me a little more.
Yeah. And like you can still do, the live or like live based content. Like the hack itself was definitely like using the page live on the page itself and then turning that into an ad, because you could just take the organic post itself and turn it directly into an ad. I would say now, like what we've been focused on these days is not obviously so much doing that or doing even the organic posts and things anymore. The entire focus for us has just been on creating the ads themselves, like one-to-one variations of the ads themselves, hanging on to those ad IDs themselves. And you can even now use the ads themselves as posts. Like you can create posts out of the ads. So like what we've been doing is we've been validating the ads themselves, kind of reversing this strategy in a way. And then the ads that we find to be validated that convert very well, we then give to the organic team or we give to the client, and then they can turn that into an organic post. Or sometimes we'll just simply post it for them as an organic post. And now it's already pre-vetted. It has a ton of social proof on it already too, right? So they're getting like a massive advantage on that post. And They're basically not having to like pre-qualify or sort of come up with that content ahead of time because we've already tested it through the ads and typically against like another 6 to 8 variations of that same content just to make sure it was the best, choice to begin with.
Absolutely. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I want to dive in a second into how you're using AI, but before we get there, I got to ask: are there any other really powerful? Well, we're on the topic of Facebook ads, Meta ads. Any other really powerful strategies you're seeing are working right now, 2025, like with the Meta platform?
The only other thing I would say that is working extremely well for us is splitting out our campaigns from lead to conversion focus. There's been 2 kind of main focuses for campaigns that you can adjust for. And we've been using the lead variation of campaigns a lot more lately. For booked calls, if you're doing like any actual like lead generation, which I know we use that word very loosely these days, but we've actually noticed a much better result CPL wise, cost per lead, on those types of campaigns that still do ascend into higher ticket backends and programs. So I've been using that a lot more compared to the sales conversion objective, which has been really interesting because I would have expected to see a dip in like the actual number of conversions on the back end from making some of those switches. But now I'm leading with the lead event in accounts, and then I'm bringing conversion objective in kind of after the fact, which sounds like, I guess, the way Facebook kind of intentionally wanted to design their platform, but has never worked that way,
The earlier days, it's kind of come full circle.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
it's weird.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, these are like some of the subtle little strategies and tactics, but oftentimes they can make all the difference. So now I'm excited. This is something I've been asking everybody about, and because you've heard me ask it probably a couple times now. I know you listen to some of the podcast episodes already. What are you doing right now with AI? What tools are you using? How are you using it? I'd love to hear about your AI use.
Oh man, so I use the heck out of AI, of course, and my AI answers may not be as like interesting as other people's, but I will say this: I have tried a ton of AI tools for writing specifically. Ad copy, as you know, is like a huge part of what I do. I primarily write a lot of the ads for our clients still. I oversee most of that as well, just because it's something I'm very passionate about, something I've always been great with, and truly feel like is a part of what helps make the difference for us. I have found a variety of tools, obviously, over the years of like helping me write and helping write content and ads and things that were effective. I have split tested many of these variations against myself, ChatGPT versus Claude, and so on, many different like variations and iterations. Say at this point, about a week and a half ago, because I won't pay, I'm kind of very frugal. So like I'll only pay for like 2 at a time kind of thing as I'm testing them, and then I'll like declare a winner and then I'll kick them out and I'll sign up for the next one. And, I'll split test and battle them out because I don't want to test too many models. And obviously I'm testing against my client results. So I'm only willing to test so much, right? Because I'm more focused on obviously the best result for my
That's also
client.
A media buying concept too, because it's not even just the being frugal, right? It's knowing when to test and how many things to test, because most people fall into one of 2 camps. They either don't test enough at all or don't test at all, right? They just rely on one thing, one campaign, or in this case, one AI tool. On the other side, people might test too many things that they don't get any meaningful data because you can't analyze. So you're testing a ton of different ads or audiences, but without the budget to do so, or you're testing a ton of different AI tools, but that means that you don't actually really tell what's actually working or not working. So I think you actually shared you're approaching your AI testing of different tools just like as a media buyer. So it makes sense to me. So what have you discovered?
I'd like to think of being very methodical about it. Based on my very conclusive data, I would say that, I hate to say this because it's not the cool answer, but ChatGPT still works the best for me. And mine is connected to my Google Drive, which has like all my stuff, all the writings, all the things, every project, everything I've done over the years. Everything is there. It is connected to all this stuff. I do use it and have used it probably the most compared to the other tools. But it is just still the best when it comes to the writing style, the way that we write ads and the way that we do things. It copies me the best. And I've even shot it out against myself. Obviously on platform, I've done it with clients, I've done it internally. And there's been many times where internally people are like, oh yeah, Derek, you definitely wrote this. And I'm like, I didn't write that at all. I'm glad you guys think I did, because that means it's great.
Yeah.
So I would say that has been kind of the biggest focus for us because we textually do a lot. The other really unique one has been 11. We've been using that because a big problem for us is getting video content from clients. I'm sure that's probably not a surprise, right? Getting good creatives, just getting like workable stuff. We do a lot on the editing side for our clients and creative part to fix a lot of those things. But at the same time, trying to get like decent stuff from them can be a challenge. So we found that we've been able to get, a little bit better a product, a little bit better a result that way. So I would say between like that, Opus AI, I know on the editing side too, has been like massively helpful for us. Josh could probably speak more to like creatively, like what we've been utilizing. I can say that like there have been a lot of AI ad tools out there that are like very popular that just don't work very well, unfortunately. Like I really wish they did, because I hate making ad creative. Honestly, I really don't enjoy it. I enjoy the copy piece, but I just don't enjoy the actual like video part, which I know is a lot more pure forte. I would prefer if we could just get kind of more of those assets like already, delivered. But 9 out of 10 times we have to help them, with those pieces too, right? A lot of times those pieces are the problem. We found that there hasn't been a tool that's been able to kind of totally replace that for us. Like there's been some tools out there that are positioned to do that, but just the quality is not quite there yet. So we're just still like manually doing a lot of it, and then just using the AI to help assist, using it to help create like more variation. One thing I like to say is that with AI, I feel like a lot of people like to just try to use it to generate the idea. We like to like write maybe like one solid piece of copy for like the product or the offer. Like I'll sit down probably and write like the first piece, and then I'll use that to create the iteration. We start with, I don't want to be pretentious, but I'll say we'll start with gold or silver in this case, right? And then we'll get much better results because we're using something we know is already really good or has worked well in the past, like a higher converting ad maybe from before. And then we'll use that to then variate from, versus using it to kind of create the idea, which is where I feel like a lot of people make the big mistake. And then they don't get the result they're looking for because they didn't really put in the effort or the time into like the thought process of like, why is this important? Why would someone want it? Versus just like, hey, AI, just figure it out and try your best. And it didn't work. And then they just kind of move on, or they think AI is not that great or whatever, but their input wasn't good.
Yeah. It's an amplification tool. And which is amazing because you can get X the output or more of what you would put into it. But if you just put a dud into it, you're not going to get the best out. And by nature, AI tools are designed to be mediocre in their responses because that is the average of all responses on the internet. Now, some, if they have GPTs or they're pre-built, they'll, generate potentially better responses. But in general, it might not be what you're looking for, because even if it's tuned, it might not be tuned to you. So everything that you said about connecting it to your Google Drive, actually having it learn, that's one thing, because I found Claude really valuable. But, I think that the connection to the Google Drive is something that I have not tested yet on ChatGPT. So you're making me inclined to do that. The data privacy, that's a whole different, obviously, it just is what it is. Like, you just got to put all this stuff there. I haven't clicked the button yet, but you may be convincing me.
Ads is seen, from your drive already.
Yeah, exactly. Google has all of that already. Yeah, exactly. Google has all that data. They're Gemini and all that stuff.
Yeah, I tried Gemini as well a lot, and wasn't impressed with Gemini. No. It's the most underwhelming personally, I think, out of the options I tried for my specific use case.
2.5 has gotten better because we have G Suite for our whole team. So everybody and that's like one of the things, they all have Gemini. And we have specific team members that we get, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, different things for, depending on their role and what they need. And I'm also a big advocate that, like, people are going to utilize it, let us know, we'll get it for you. But everybody having Gemini, that's kind of the default, that like if the team doesn't have a specific use case, they're using that. But the 2.5 launch, which was like last week, did make it a lot better. Because I agree, I was pretty underwhelmed with it. But again, using AI to some degree is better than not using AI at all. So,
I agree. I think the input to output also quite important, right? And that's kind of why I was testing kind of things the way I've been testing it. We also are on the Google Workspace, so we have Gemini as well, and I'm trying to like string it along, because Gemini is just like that it's just a part of your team, whether you want it to be or not, So you're like, okay, we got Gemini here, right? We might as well try to use it.
Exactly, and it's in Gmail. Exactly.
It's been all right in
Yes, that's
Gmail.
what
It's
I'm
helped
saying.
me.
Like that's actually, and that's been, the team members that aren't doing like copy as like their main thing or aren't really utilizing it. It's like, okay, this is a good one to use. And obviously if you need the pro plan of any of the other things, we'll get it for you. But yeah, but 2.5, check out 2.5 because it seems to be doing better. I'm not saying it's any better. It's still not as good as Claude and GPT from what I've seen, but it does seem to have one-upped itself. So that's at least a welcome change. But anyways, all right, that's the AI discussion. Now we're gonna have another golden nugget or two coming up in a second. So make sure you don't go anywhere. We're also going to hear how you can find out more about Derek and everything that he's doing. But another question that I've started asking everybody, which I'm not sure if you heard this on the episodes you listened to, but from now on, I'm asking this. One of the big things that I believe, and I know you know this as well, because at one point you were on the Ad Outreach Dream Team here, is the win or learn, the entrepreneur's mindset. And I actually had these coins made. You can see win on one side, learn on the other side, and learning is winning. By the way, I'll get you one of these coins
I
the
was gonna
next time
say,
we see each other, or I'll send one to you. I'll ship one to you. But yeah, so it's the entrepreneur's mindset. But the big part is the learning lesson, right? It's like win or learn, two sides of the same coin. What's an example of a time that you've made a mistake that others might see as a failure? And maybe at first you saw it as a failure and it, created challenges. But then because of that lesson that you learned from that mistake, it actually helped your business, helped you grow, or helped your clients. But what's a mistake that became a learning lesson that actually turned into a success?
I have many of these. Um,
We
many
all
of
do.
these. I would say here's a good one that I think might be applicable here. So I had a pretty high value client. Um, I've had many high value clients, but this client at the time was like our most valuable. They were like 60% of our business. And that's definitely a huge mistake. I feel like a lot of service providers fall into, where you're very heavily dependent on one client. 60% still not like entirely dependent, but if when we lost that client, it was kind of catastrophic. I had to rethink, structure and take out some loans even to like cover some bases for team members and things because I was very unexpected. It should have been expected given my response, which we're going to get into. That's the learning lesson. But I personally, in my business, kind of made some decisions related to some of the client projects where I just felt like either we weren't really getting the value or maybe we like didn't sell quite as good of an opportunity, so instead of kind of addressing it in a more conducive way, like either just growing out of that project, which is, in my opinion, the smartest thing to do is like, you continue to level up, you grandfather people in, wherever they're at, and you just continue to level up your other projects that come in. Maybe it makes sense possibly to make one of those offers to a client and let them know how we were doing a lot better now. We're growing. We're kind of leveling up in a lot of ways. And, we're not really going to be offering these things anymore. We're offering these things. Hopefully you want to be a part of this journey. And if not, totally get it, totally understand. That's the way it should have been. But that's not the way it went down. I ended up letting kind of like pride get the better of me and ended up not making some good business decisions with some projects where I felt like I could have kind of grandfathered those projects in. Maybe I could have come up with like a better way to kind of address some of those things. And instead, I decided to kind of take what I thought was the high road at the time and let go of some of those projects that, looking back, probably wasn't maybe the best decision, wasn't really probably the best time either. I survived. Obviously, we overcame, so it wasn't a huge deal. But at the same time, I learned that tact and also just kind of resolving problems, especially when you're in like a position like me or you, Aleric, right, where we have other people who rely on us and people beneath us. A lot of times, you really kind of can't let your ego get the better of you. And especially when you're in the service-based business, ultimately you're there to serve. And at the end of the day, regardless of what happens or how like you grow or your company grows or what changes, you really just need to honor kind of the things that you originally agreed to and like how you transition some of those relationships is super important. And I learned that lesson a little bit the hard way at that time with that client. Thankfully, we're on very good terms still. I still consider that client a friend of mine. They've even hired us after the fact. So I know I did the right thing and I smoothed it over. But, looking back, I just will never approach a project or a thing like that ever again. And I'm glad that I was able to salvage, that situation and that project. And thankfully, it wasn't something that ended up being super catastrophic that could have ended my business.
Yeah. And it's always these lessons that we learn, that in the moment they're really they feel just so painful, but it's those lessons that really stick. And there's the FDR quotes, smooth seas never made a skilled sailor, right? And like those are the things that forge you through fire to also make you a better entrepreneur, a better leader, and a better CEO. And obviously had countless challenges that I've turned into learning lessons, which built success off of. And so that's also one of the reasons I like to ask this, because I think especially people who are newer in entrepreneurship or are going through a tough time right now, or a challenge that they're facing, sometimes need that reminder that everybody goes through this. Everybody goes through different challenges, but it's actually those challenges that turn into learning lessons that stack up wins. And I'll even argue that a learning lesson, right, a mistake or maybe something that doesn't go your way, that you actually learn and grow from is even better than a win you never learned from. Now, obviously, we love the wins we learn from. That's the best. That's the holy grail. That's what we're looking for. It's a win and we learn something. But if you don't know why you had a success, you can't repeat it. But if you know why something didn't work, you can repeat not doing that, right? So that's a long-term, right? You get a long-term benefit when you learn from things, whether they're wins or mistakes, and it's compounding that over time and stacking the wins, learning from the lessons, and there you go. I know you live by that as well. So, all right, we've got some golden nuggets or a golden nugget or two to wrap it up in a second here. That's how we like to end every episode. But before we get into that, how can people learn more about you, Rediscover Digital, everything that you're doing?
Yeah, so rediscoverdigital.com, of course, would be the agency site. That would probably be one good way to learn about me, but the best way to learn about me would be to go and find me on social media, Derek Tsuboi. You can find me pretty much anywhere. I hang out on Facebook, LinkedIn, and then there is a ton of content out there about me. So if you are interested in learning about me, I'm sure you could find a cool podcast like this or an article or something out there about me. And I'm also super accessible. I don't mind jumping on quick calls and getting to meet new people, so if you're so inclined, then I'd love to catch up with you on a Zoom call or something.
I love it. I love it. And so definitely go check out all the links. We'll put those down in the description below, wherever you're watching this. Speaking of wherever you're watching this, make sure that you are subscribed to the Marketing Minds podcast. You turn on notifications and you hit that bell icon. And then, of course, make sure that if you have the opportunity to rate us 5 stars on your favorite podcast platform, we're looking to stack those 5-star reviews and provide even more value for everybody. So, Derek, now what are some final golden nuggets, some final words of wisdom that you can leave with everybody here to round out the episode?
Oh man, I'm gonna steal your thunder on one because I learned this one directly from you.
Okay.
The only true failure is the failure to learn. That's something that we stand by in our agency. We stand by in all of our campaigns and everything that I do still to this day. So I'll give you that one first, just because that's a very powerful mantra to me. I've learned it from you, clearly, and it's something we still really stand by, even like when campaigns don't work out, which is unfortunately often, right? Again, as an agency owner, I'll be the first to admit that it's often. The only true failure is a failure to learn, right? We learn what doesn't work and why it doesn't work, and we adjust, change, adapt, and figure out what does.
I love it. I definitely I will. I'll send you one of these coins here. Entrepreneur's mindset: learning is winning, and that's exactly it's only the only true failure is a failure to learn. So I love that, and I'm so honestly I'm honored that you're still taking that with you in your agency today. And what other golden nugget? Any other final marketing tactic, little tidbit, something that's working well, just to round out the episode?
One final one that I'll say, I wanted to give two, just because anyone else that knows me might have already assumed that I might have said that, but because I do say that a lot.
That's great.
But the other one that's really specific to me, more so, is what we've been seeing in businesses a lot is just a lack of testing. And again, I guess it kind of goes hand in hand with like my first piece of advice, but I'm going to kind of reiterate again, just because this is the thing that I see across at least my sort of version of the space and all the people, clients, projects, and things that I come across. People aren't testing enough. People are not testing enough, and they're not testing the right way, like what we were discussing earlier about the AI tools. So I would say not only should you test things, but just make sure you're testing them right. If you're testing everything, you're testing nothing. You want to make sure to have a control and a variation, or at least like some sense of this is our current plane, like we are here, these are our numbers, and that way there we know whether or not we're doing better or worse. If you can't answer that, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And that's it. I'll leave it with kind of those two major golden nuggets. To me, I feel like those two are probably the most valuable things that across the wide gambit of things that I've worked on over the last several years, I would say apply pretty much every project, every single use case.
Absolutely. Always testing. Always, always, always. So completely agree.
In case anyone's curious, 10 to 20% of the budget.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 10 to 20% of the budget.
We didn't say that yet.
Yep. And then same thing with your retargeting. You gotta throw another 10 to 20% or even more if where it's working well towards retargeting, and then 10 to 20% towards testing, and then the rest is your winners, right? And so there you go. And it's great because we're so aligned, because we've also bounced. And by the way, I've learned things from Derek, both our conversations, but also the time that you were heading up our marketing here, and so a lot of great minds think alike, and that's also why we created the Marketing Minds podcast. So honestly, actually, some of the conversations that we had inspired or at least indirectly inspired the Marketing Minds podcast, right? It's just having these like jam conversations. It's like, I actually think I even talked, I think it was at Funnel Hacking Live, and this was a year ago. So this may have been part of the origin of the podcast, is just being like, it would be cool if people could hear these conversations that we're having, in the, back room of getting, Funnel Hacking Live, like 2 Comma Club award, 2 Comma Club X and C or whatever awards, like, those types of conversations, because it's so interesting what we're talking about. And what people don't realize is, if you're not in that kind of either with marketers or in that kind of echelon of people that are operating, or at least known to be operating at that level on the marketing side. And again, there's different industries. So you might be watching this and you're just not in the marketing industry. You might be doing this and mastermind with other people, but that's like what we do. We mastermind. We say, hey, what are you seeing working? Here's what's working. Like, share all the best strategies. That's one of my favorite things. And what I saw is there's a lot of podcasts where people kind of say, hey, here's my story and here's what I've done, which is all well and good. It's all great. And sometimes we dive into that a little bit, but I wanted to really create a podcast where we can just jam on marketing. That also is a type of podcast I would genuinely want to listen to, and that you would want to listen to. And I'm honored that you already, listened to a few of those episodes. And so anyways, I know we extended this a little bit, but that's the origin of Marketing Mind. So you in part helped inspire that.
Oh, that's so funny. I remember, sitting with you at the hotel Starbucks there at the Funnel Hacking Live event. Yeah. And working on it in between all of the people coming up to introduce themselves to you.
I know. Exactly. Well, thank you so much again, Derek. It's been fantastic. Everybody who's watching or listening, we'll post all the links down below, and we will see you in the next episode.
Thank you so much, Aleric.